There is a long and quite frankly venomous 40-minute podcast sitting in my drafts that will not be going anywhere. This is my second attempt at a video for this week because I was angry. And I am angry, which is why I look incredible. Because I thought at least if you're going to be filthy to this audience, give them something to look at. Or maybe it'll help fix you up. I don't know if anyone else does this, but sometimes when I'm in a really disgusting mood, I feel disgusting, I mentally feel disgusting, whatever it is, I get dressed up and bitch at work sometimes. Do I think it worked this week? No. What I think worked was me screaming full lung capacity for the last 40 minutes at this camera, me then turning it off, taking a breather and saying, you're going to have to start again because you can't do that to these people. Maybe some of the moments in that episode, the forgotten, the lost episode of anger could make it, but I don't think it's appropriate because it wasn't funny. I couldn't get it there. It was just an hour of deep anger and hatred because I've had a weird week and I wanted to talk about it. I tried, but it wasn't funny. So I'm going to try to touch upon it, but also I am going to do a different exercise with us as a group, as a community to try to help me and by extension you heal. So let's just try to get into this episode. Breathe in. Welcome to What the Fuchs with Jess Fuchs. Now breathe out. And scream. Because here's what's pissed Jess off this week. Let's just unpack a very baseline, a very top level, a very just entry level discussion of why I had a hard week. I did a number of shows, most of which were horrible. And it felt like this week there was a lot of sexism in the water, if I had to diagnose it. Maybe I was off my game at every single show. It's possible. You know, there are aliens. It's possible. Anything can be true. Do I think at this point it is all me? No. So what I did was I recorded an episode which was going to be delightfully called I'm Quitting Being a Female Comedian. But it felt too hateful, felt too negative, and maybe just getting it out of my system helped. I still feel I feel tremors. I can feel hate tremors every so often. I just get a little shockwave. But I took a breather and I sat back down. So what I'm going to do this week is I want to just tell you, because this week felt so hard in terms of my job, I definitely spent more time on TikTok, also because I was flirting with a man on TikTok. Because he's younger than me, so he DM'd me on TikTok. I don't have the capacity to talk about it. So unfortunately, I spent more time on that platform than I typically do. What does that mean? It means I had some observations. It means I had some thoughts. I'm just going to throw a bunch of new stand-up jokes and observations I have at you, because my goal was to do them in clubs and shows this week. But it was just a hard week. I'm skirting around the issue because I'm scared if I give myself too much rope, what will happen is we will fall into a 2.0 aggressive podcast, and this was supposed to be a fresh, fun episode. So I am tiptoeing around a dangerous cliff's edge to not let myself fall down into that hole again. But what I will say, no. We're going to do the fun stuff first, and then I will go on a rant afterwards. These are just a bunch of jokes that I have been thinking about over the past few weeks that so far don't have any structure. These are just the seedlings of ideas. And it kind of, I guess, gives you a sense of how my brain works, ? It also hopefully will be funny and earn me some brownie points, so then at the end of this, I can go full psycho killer. Because I don't know the words. Do you know what I mean? I don't know the words to most songs. I think when I'm singing, I literally am just saying a bunch of sounds. But then again, isn't that just talking? Isn't talking just making sounds we've remembered that hold meaning? Like me saying because that's just a sound that has meaning. Do you know what I mean? That is English. That's all language. Let's just jump into this week. These are some thoughts I had. Puzzles. Okay. I can't comprehend how anyone sits down to do a puzzle. It seems unfathomable to me that any of you give a fuck to sit down to match up a bunch of broken up pieces that fit back together to make the picture on the box. I can't imagine wasting my time. I can't imagine having the patience. And I come from a family of puzzlers. My family loves to puzzle. I hate it. I think it's so strange, and I can't actually comprehend. I think my problem is I'm so black and white thinking in life that if I don't like something that you do, I cannot comprehend why you would be interested. I cannot understand the mentality of a person who looks at a box of 1,000-piece puzzle and is like, this looks like a delicious afternoon. I actually cannot get into I could sooner get into the mind of a serial killer than a puzzler. What do you mean you want to spend your day matching up pieces that have been intentionally, incorrectly cut up and put into a box lazily? No. Just no. Now, the next thing. I was scrolling a couple of nights ago on TikTok and I see this man and he is saying that his whole thing was like, I found my style, right? And so I think it's really sexy. Now I go and put that on Instagram and I say, to me, this is sexual. And I put a poll up because I thought, to me, like, I can't fathom this not being attractive. Again, that kind of black and white thinking. I can only imagine one kind of way of seeing this thing. Like, I can't imagine someone looking at a video of a man. Now, it was a montage of various moments of clothes he wore. For example, baggy jeans, a little belt, black t-shirt, a little bit cropped too. Like, I've been gagging for a man in like a little crop. It's not to show midriff, but I'm saying it's not like long. It's just like it would sit at where the waistband of the pants are. And then he's wearing, like tracksuit pants with like a cool shirt over it. Like, just cool, to me, sexy. Anyway, I put that up. The number of people who were literally like, you're ovulating. And I was like, no. And they're like, you are. Because like, it's insane that you think this is hot. And I was like, no, this is objectively hot. And enough people voted yes on the poll that he is hot, that this is a hot style, that I know I'm not crazy. And I know that it's got nothing to do with where I am in my cycle. But it was making me absolutely pissed that multiple people, and I'm not talking like 2, I'm talking like 10, were literally like, where are you in your cycle? The fact that you find this hot, where are you in your cycle? And so I Googled it to see, do we find different kinds of people hot depending on the cycle? Because I know that we get hornier, but I just wondered if it allows us to be more open. And I had a homosexual friend of mine reply to a story and be like, what are you talking about? Ovulation, la, la, la. And I said, how the fuck do you think you're here? Your mum opened her legs, because he was being a dick about me and my sexual appetite. And I said, your mum opened her legs because she was ovulating to your ugly father. And that's why you are a subpar human, because she was horny and gave him a chance. She should never have mixed with his DNA to spit out you between her thighs, you useless cunt. If you knew him, you'd know that the way I speak to him is very fair. He needs a good firm kick up the ass, which he'd enjoy too much, so maybe more of a slap around the face, which I think he'd enjoy too. We all have those friends who are useless, but we stick them around, we keep him around just because he brings value. Also, you can get a bit of bullying out on him in like a fun, playful way because he's just happy to be there, and that's that homosexual. Anyway, so when I was doing a little bit of research about how do our sexual appetites, and more so what we're attracted to, because you can have the same, I would say this, and this is, I am a woman with half a psychology degree, so I am basically a scientist. I would say this, you can have the same type, but maybe your attraction, your literal horniness fluctuates depending on where you are in your period. But I would say that the question I was posing to the internet is, can you legitimately change your what you find attractive overall depending on your cycle? That was the scientific question I was posing to the internet. And the answer was yes. Research indicates that women's preferences for potential mates can shift around ovulation, leading to increased attraction to men displaying markers of genetic fitness such as masculinity and muscularity. This is interpreted as an evolved tendency to favor traits of offspring, viability, and high fertility days, though the specific attraction to different people depends on the context, such as the presence and qualities of a long-term partner. Fascinating. So in theory, we could expand, because if you're typically dating a more waif kind of man, and then on your period you see like a big jacked guy, maybe that guy seems like he'd be a more viable partner. But this yes, the man had the privilege in the video of being objectively attractive, but to me, I was like, you could put any man in that style and that would be hot to me. Like, you could put a thick boy or like a more waif thin man. I just think the style was hot. And then a friend of mine decided she would come on board anonymously and say, look, I'll be quiet about this, but I will tell you, I agree. I do think he's hot. Because the pushback on this video was crazy. She said, I do find him hot, but it's a slippery slope to grunge. And I said, this man to me is not grunge. It's all well kept, because the grunge and the bad boy crossover is high. Like, if the what's it called? The, not the pie graph. What's the round one and the round one, and then they overlap. The grunge and dirty, to me, grunge and dirty are very different aesthetics. I personally also, in terms of aesthetics, but also personality, I'm not typically attracted to the bad boy. I have a lot of friends who love the bad boy. Doesn't really do much for me. I like a responsible man. I want you to be on your shit. I don't really want you to, like, if you say you're going to call. I don't need you playing these games. That's not interesting to me. But the aesthetic of the grunge is very different to the bad boy aesthetic. There can be overlap. But it isn't always. It isn't necessarily. So I just want to say, she came on board and she said, I agree with you. And I said, thank you for being brave. And then we discussed kind of the nuances in how one may be grunge but not dirty, but then you could be bad boy dirty. There's so many, pulls to dip. There's so many pulls to dip your toe into, as it were. People want to say, I've heard men be like, oh, women get better clothes, there's more variety. Honey, you're just being boring with your style. There's plenty of different aesthetics that a man can adopt. And this kind of clean boy slash kind of, I'm going to say the aesthetic in this video, if you haven't seen it or aren't going to look, is kind of clean boy meets baggy boy. Everything's a little bit baggy, but also fitted. He's an enigma. And maybe that's what it is. I look at his aesthetic and I go, I can't quite figure you out, hun. Can you hear that? Every single day. Every single day, an ice cream truck gets back to the neighborhood and it plays its song twice over and then it stops. And I don't know if that is like, when you park the ice cream truck, does the sound go off? Or is that just like he plays it twice to let his wife know I'm home, so anyone who's in the house, maybe like get him out the window? I don't know. But it seems crazy to me that if you are a man who drives an ice cream truck, you are parking your truck and you'd have to play the song twice. That's like if every single time you parked your car, you have to have the horn go off 10 times. What? It doesn't make sense. But if every single day, like clockwork, this ice cream man gets home between 3:52 and 4 p.m. Another thing I was thinking about this week, I received a Facebook request from Graham. Graham, I have discussed with you before. If you are new here or am not aware of who Graham is, he is like an 80-something-year-old man I played tennis with when I was in Sydney. We, along with a couple other friends, would always play tennis together. Now, this man is an old-school charmer. He was an absolute weirdo, and I love him. Me and Graham played tennis together with our other friend, Kate. Kate is a doctor. Kate and I always used to joke, because she was his doctor, that when he dies, we will do the same way that there is a gun salute for a soldier, we will do a tennis serve salute into the air as they lower his casket into the floor. I also told him I would marry him for his money. He doesn't have any money because he's currently dating someone and she has money. So we are just kind of a snake that's eating its tail, trying to catch someone. Everyone's looking for someone with money. That's what we're looking for. I'm on Graham's tail. Graham's on his missus' tail. We're all looking for it. But he's added me on Facebook. I thought, what the hell is this ghost doing here? Good to know you're still alive. I did think you were dead, Graham. He's alive, and he slid into the DMs. And he said, hello, Jess. How are you? Formatted like an email, no less. Of course, old man doesn't know the difference between an email, a letter, and a DM. So anyway, he messaged me, and I just thought, it's kind of beautiful because, after you see an old man type and you know that he's using one finger at a time, it makes those kind of creepy messages coming into your message bank or your DMs or your whatever, you kind of appreciate them more. Because if someone's like, send boob, B-O-B, you're like, you're not asking to send Bob, you're asking to send boob, but because you only type with one finger, it took you a long time. And so are you creepy, or are you just an old man who's like, that I just kind of, seeing old people type with one finger, I really respect the kind of weird emails or creepy slide-ins more. They've put in the effort rather than these young men. These young men are sending bad DMs. If you're getting a DM from someone between the ages of 18 and 40 and there are spelling mistakes and incorrectly structured, don't answer. But if you're getting a DM from like an 85-year-old man asking for a pair of your TETS, teats, send him your tits. You know he means tits. You know that it would have taken so long for him to backspace. He's horny. Just send it to him. When you see men type who are old and then you get a message from them, appreciate the work, the love, the time that has gone into them finding all of the right letters or a combination of letters that aren't always right, but they're there. Must be heading out for the day. I really hope you can hear this in the background, otherwise it's just me dancing to nothing. All right. Okay, this is not fun. Fucking hell. Righto. It is Saturday here, so maybe he's just doing the rounds in the neighborhoods to try to catch all the kids. But this area doesn't really have kids that in like American movies are running to an ice cream truck, so I don't really know what's going on there. The thing about old people too is like they don't know how to use social media. Graham probably only added me on Facebook and sent me a message because someone young came into his house. And so you got to appreciate that the lengths, these people are getting supervised. These old men are getting supervised in order to figure out how to follow you on Instagram to then DM you something creepy. The dedication is unmatched with my generation. They know what they're doing. They full well know what they're doing. They're doing it on their own accord. But these old people, they have to find a young computer literate person so that they can be a creep to you. You can't say that they're not trying. Just jumping from thought to thought, from joke to joke, from idea to idea, because that's really what this is. It's an idea incubator so that I can then get to the meat and potatoes, which is what I'm angry about. My friend adopted a dog and now she changed the name of the dog. And I said to her, so this dog has come to you, a mature age student no less, and you're changing up the name on the dog? I don't think that's fair to change an older dog's name that's been adopted. Because these things are old, they're grumpy, they got a cigarette hanging out of their mouth. They were about to be put down and find peace. I do say old dogs can learn new tricks, but that doesn't mean you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or you can. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? What's crazy is the saying is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But then when I'm Googling it, it's saying you absolutely can teach an old dog new tricks. As the saying is a myth and older dogs remain capable of learning new commands and skills. While it may take more patience and time compared to training a puppy, older dogs often have longer attention spans and a strong desire. They're old. Leave them alone. You're telling me you're going to teach an old dog a new trick, but it's going to take more time and have more patience. Leave these old bitches alone. Let them sit. They've served you, they give you a dopamine hit, and now you're telling me you're going to teach an old dog a new trick? Let them lie. Changing the name of an adopted dog that is old is not fair. They're walking around thinking their name is Rufus. Next thing, they're in a new space. They're old. They think they can relax. And then you're going, come here, Peanut. Come here, Peanut. You know Peanut looking back going, Ruff, you ain't talking to me, bitch. My name ain't Peanut, and I won't be adopting a new name. That's insane. They have a dead name? They've got a dead name, and now they have to be like, okay, I guess I'm fucking Peanut. If I'm going to get fed, I have to go when you call me Peanut, fine. I don't think changing the name of an adopted dog after a certain amount of time, after a certain age, is fair play. I actually think it's not cool. Adopt the dog. Pat yourself on the shoulder. You did the right thing. Now let them be themselves. Also, why do you feel the need to change a dog's name? I don't get that. You've adopted the dog. Whatever the dog's name was, that's the dog's name. If your love is conditional to a dog based on the name you want to give it, you shouldn't have that dog. That should be question number 1 on an adoption agency test. Do you want to change this animal's name? Yes? Well then find a new place. Because this dog's name is Rufus. And he will die Rufus as he lived Rufus. Okay? I was thinking a lot about gold diggers because I saw a bunch of videos online on TikTok. As I've been miserable in my career, I have spent more time on TikTok. And thus I have seen and fallen into a certain combination of algorithms which are rotting my brain. What's new? I am a product of my generation. I won't apologize. But I was thinking about this concept of gold diggers, right? Because there is always this conversation around, I see a lot of these like hot young women dating these older men. People are like, it's for the money, gold digger, la 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 la. Now, the thing that I find funny about this conversation around gold diggers, especially the people who are offended, repulsed by someone who is a gold digger, is that you are critical or triggered by a woman who's looking for a man with money. Okay, financial security, someone who can provide just like their father did. And you're grumpy because this person is seeking what they want. You're grumpy that someone's a gold digger. Hold on. What's the criteria for your woman again? Oh, you want someone who will cook, clean, have your children, and keep the house clean? Who does that remind me of? Your mum. So you're grumpy that a woman is looking for money. She's a gold digger. That's all she wants. Okay. Well, you don't want a very complicated woman. You're not looking for someone particularly nuanced. You just want a maid that you can have at home. And why the hell should your maid work for free, mind you? That's where the services comes in, the money comes in. So all these people who want to criticize the gold digger, who are going for what they want, hey, if they're keeping it tight, if they are being hot, if they are being a fun time for the person with money, well, it's an exchange of goods and services. They get money and financial stability, and the person who's got cash, they get someone hot to fuck and someone to keep around that makes them laugh and gives them a good time. Get over it. I don't want to hear another peep from people complaining about someone who is a gold digger, because you know who complains? It's always the people who they themselves have a criteria that's ridiculous. And they, what is it? Oh, you can't find someone who fits all of your box because you don't have enough money. So then you get grumpy at a rich man who can afford to have somebody that you want. This idea that you are grumpy or critical of someone who's looking for money, that's on their criteria list, yet you have a list of cook, clean, keep a home for me, have my children, be my slave. Sounds like you're just trying to replace your mother. And it sounds like you can't afford to, so shut the fuck up. That's my little thought on gold digger criticism. I do feel like as I'm 31, turning 32 at the end of the year, and what I found fascinating is also, I don't know if you can hear that I am essentially in a garbage bag, right? The shirt I'm wearing, if you can see it, great. If you can't see it, it's an asymmetrical black shirt, and the asymmetry is my neck is lined with what can really only be described as like a garbage bag they've stuffed with garbage bags. So I'll ASMR it one more time. So if you're catching some of that, if you're catching some strays of the garbage bag, it's because I'm moving around and shaking it for you, doll. And I'm sitting in a piece of clothing that is a garbage bag because it's kind of symbolic of how I feel this week. It's symbolic of I'm trying to emerge from the garbage that was my week and look fabulous and not let it get me down. Let's get back into that. Now I'm 31. I'm cusping 32. Have I been going through a slow burn anxiety attack? For sure, for the last couple months. This week I had a couple consultations with some of my older friends. They're in their mid to late 30s, many of whom said that this kind of weird in-between existential crisis, normal, because majority of the people I am around are married or getting married or having kids or had kids. They are stable. They have homes, not actually own them because no one can afford that in this day and age, but they have homes. And I have nothing, and that's okay. But I feel this transitional period and this strange kind of in between. And the main build up to tell you is to say that I am 31 and I am in this place where I have had conversations with friends. The conversation around trying to find a drug dealer and trying to find a partner is the same thing. First of all, you need someone who your friends will vouch for you, both directions. The drug dealer needs to know that you're not gonna call the cops and you aren't an undercover cop. So your friend has to vouch both ways. They also don't really do drugs as much anymore, so they don't really have someone to call. They don't really have any single guy friends because most of their friends, by extension, in relationships. It is the same process to find a drug dealer when you're 31 that it is to find a partner through your friends. There are so many questions. It's very hard to find good quality product. They only really, hang out with those kinds of people once in a blue moon. They only really do a bag once in a blue moon. Through a friend of a friend of a friend, maybe they know someone who's a single viable man. Why is it when you hit a certain age, finding drugs and a husband is very difficult? That's the conversation I've been thinking about and having this week. My friends are just like, I just don't know anyone anymore, You don't know anyone you don't know any single man, you don't know any drug dealers. And then you do the same thing. You go out, you stand on the side of the street, you see if someone will approach you. Sometimes they do, but you don't know if they're to be trusted. Are your drugs good? Are you a good man? Why are you still single? Suspicious, suspicious, suspicious. what I want to go into about the bad week this week. I had a number of shows, many of which were shitty. The audiences were kind of sexist, but also you can't always blame it on that. I also don't want to go down that pathway. What I want to say is I really, really, really felt this week this feeling of like, and I'm coining this term without Googling it, so perhaps it was already in the ether by a sociologist or psychologist. I think women suffer from this pressure of female exceptionalism. If you are in a male-dominated space, not even. If you're a mother, a female-dominated space, parenting, female-dominated space, you feel this need to be exceptional. Because for me as a female comedian, I go on stage typically as the only woman in the space, and I feel this extreme pressure to always outperform everyone else so that I am proving a point that women are funny. Because there is so much criticism toward female comedians. I've had people come up to me after a gig, I usually don't find women funny, but you were good. That doesn't mean that I have changed your opinion on women, period, being good comedians. I am an exception to the idea that all women are not funny. And this week, every single show, I really struggled. I just had a hard week. I was working on new material. I don't know. Every single show just went bad, which I think then got in my head for the next show, for the next show, for the next show. And I just felt this extreme pressure. And I sent a voice note to my friend and was almost crying because I was I just feel this heavy, heavy responsibility and this frustrating, heartbreaking, just addictive, inescapable feeling to be exceptional. And it actually damages and takes away from my ability to do the job, because the job is to continuously expand my skill set and to write new material and develop new ideas. But this week just felt like an absolute slog because I had a horrible week of shows, each one worse than the last. And, there's so many factors that come into why, but the undercurrent, the thing that ran true through my week was just this guilt when I wasn't able to be incredible and I wasn't able to be the best performer on ground. And it is such a shit feeling, and it is one that has followed me for my entire career, to be really honest. This idea that I feel pressure to be exceptional and to be an example of almost proving to these sexist people in the crowd that women are funny. But then the irony is people think you're funny and they tell you you are an exception and you're supposed to be fucking chuffed with that. No, I'm not. But the thing that just was so hard is I would get off stage every single time, and if I didn't do well, which all week I just struggled, I felt this embarrassment and shame and cringe, and I have literally let down womankind. That is so insane to put that on my shoulders. And it's the same whether I see it in my friends who have parents, who have kids, or just my friends who are in male-dominated spaces, or just in general. It's you need to be this perfect wife, this perfect mother. And men just get to do the bare minimum and get away with it. And people celebrate a man who's oh my God, you plaited your daughter's hair. Oh God, give her a fucking medal. Are you shut up? And women feel this extreme pressure to be perfect mothers and parents. And even then they are still criticized for not doing enough, or they still feel guilty for not doing enough. It's this feeling is just so toxic and shitty, and it infused my whole week. Add on top of that fact that here I have typically been the only woman at most shows, and then when I am the only woman, I am surrounded by men who, let's be honest, they aren't particularly supportive. We don't know each other. The industry here is way bigger, which is fine. I'm in a bigger pool that's going to come with, more people. I think the space here, I don't know very many people, and so I don't feel when a show goes shitty, I can express myself to people, predominantly the men that are around. And even when I have in the past spoken to my male comedian friends, there's kind of this attitude that I've received where it's well, just be funnier, you just got to, funny's funny. Shut up. That's not true. This idea that people think oh, we'll just be funny. If you're funny, funny wins. No, it doesn't. Because if people in the audience cross their arms or get up to go to get a drink or check their phone when a woman walks on stage, which, hey, happens all the time. That is a pattern I see all the fucking time. All of a sudden, you just feel the need to touch your phone when a woman walks on stage, but you didn't for the last two guys. I wonder what that's about. It's your sexism. It's the inherent sexism that you kind of just expect it to not be good for the next 10 minutes, or you disengage just a little bit. And it's the reality is, I know that there are a lot of great men who exist in the industry and sing their praises, but it is very hard to talk about this inherent sexism sometimes with men, because they either, and not intentionally, but some don't believe it, and some are well, there's like a perception that we're being emotional, you know, or that we're being yappy, or we just don't shut the fuck up. The funny thing is, I was Googling it this week. For some reason, I was Googling for a show, right? I was looking for something. And did you know? So women, there's a perception that women talk more, that we are yappy, that we are complainers, that we speak a lot. Women just, you know, like that is like a joke or just a very sexist existing trope that I'm sure you've heard. Do you know men and women speak the same number of words on average? We're speaking the same number of words. But there is a perception that women don't shut up. There's a perception that we're yappy or that we speak a lot or, you know, oh, men, we're just more chill. Bitch, you're saying the same number of fucking words I am. Ugh. It was just a hard week. It was a hard week because of a number of experiences that felt very sexistly charged. But on top of that, and really the more powerful and frustrating undercurrent was this kind of incessant feeling of failure as being a bad example of a female comedian. And then I start to analyze the fact that there is this pressure to be exceptional, to change people's minds every time I step on stage. And it's actually impeding my ability to do my job, to do the parts of my job that I have to get better at, like being a stronger joke writer. I have to, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I get in my own way. I don't know if this is relatable to anyone at all with their job, if you feel that pressure to be perfect, but it is draining and exhausting and horrible. So that's why I didn't want to speak about it for a full hour, because I didn't think anyone would relate to it. But I'm sure you do, because whether you're like a mum who feels pressure to be perfect mum while your husband or partner or, you know, ex, whatever, does the bare fucking minimum, I don't know. But I wonder if there is this concept of like female exceptionalism or the pressure of it that exists in society, because otherwise, honey, TM, I'm trademarking that shit because it is true. We put so much pressure to be like this perfect idea of whatever insert role you are trying to live up to. It sucks. It really fucking sucks. And I felt it this week, and it made me really sad, especially last night, because I was reflecting on my week after yet another horrible show, and I felt really isolated, and I felt really sad, and I felt really guilty and cringe and embarrassed and all of these feelings that I hadn't done a good job. And then I have to like sulk with my tail between my legs, like leaving the gig and not feeling supported by like my peers, my like male peers, because they don't give a fuck. Do you know what I mean? And I couldn't even have the conversation with them because I think they would just roll their eyes and kind of or walk away and roll their eyes, or they wouldn't actually bother to actually have like a real emotionally intelligent or vulnerable conversation. And maybe I didn't give them a chance, but you know, it's so funny how women are perceived as like emotional and like yappy and whatever, when now we're sitting in this time of like male loneliness epidemic and like whatever. It's like, yeah, you're lonely because you haven't been able to connect with people, and you criticize women, and now women are responsible for helping. You want me to help you now after you've literally spent years mocking us for being emotional and this and that, and now the solution for men is to have more connections? Do it on your own. No, that's not true. It takes a community, it takes a village, whatever the fuck. I just find it so funny that the qualities that men hate the most and mock the most and find the worst and most frustrating in women are the things that literally are their fucking savior. And isn't that so funny? It's like the venom that poisons you is also the thing that saves you, or whatever the fuck. I'm sure that's a saying. And if it's not, TM that shit too. I don't know. It's not an us versus them thing. It really isn't, and I don't want it to be, because that's not the solve. The solve isn't for me to be angry at men in general. I think the solve is for me to stop feeling guilty like I am not exceptional if I don't like change the minds of a full crowd. That's hard. That's an impossible task. Like that feels like I'm setting myself up for failure, not just like the bigger, broader picture of like changing people's minds about female comedians, but like I'm setting myself up for failure to put too much pressure on my shoulders, but it's so hard to not. Anyway, I've got to go. I think we've had some good moments today. I've had some cathartic moments with you, so I want to say thank you. And I want to say I'm sorry to end it on a shitty note, but I hope that at least it's relatable, so that whatever you feel in your industry or your job, like at least you know we all kind of feel it. And it is shit that we all feel this pressure to be exceptional or like groundbreaking or perfect all the time. That like Stepford Wives perfect. It's like, it's impossible. Okay, I'm going to try to have a great rest of my day, because that's why I got dressed up and put on a lipstick. I'm going to a friend of a friend's engagement party tonight. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see how that goes. All right, best be out. All right. Thanks for listening. I hope this was a good episode. God, talk about feeling exceptional. I'm like, every episode has to be perfect. And I know some of these are doozies, and doozies in the bad word. Sometimes you can use doozy. God, that was a doozy. I think doozy's interchangeable, kind of like Australia's version of cunt. To Americans, doozy is what Australians is to cunt. Cunt is to Australians what doozies are to America. You get it. I need to switch off my brain. I've been talking for 2 hours now. Over and out. Mwah. Love ya.